Boku no Hero and Marvel is doing quite well, and I think Bushroad wants a slice of that pie.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Fighters, welcome back to the set review of the Heroic Evolution. We already covered Link, Joker and Kagero, and today we're gonna finally conclude this set review with Nova Grappler, and of course mainly with their new hero support. But this set has more than only the hero support. We also have some generic stuff, and also we are rounding off what we started in the last set from the Light of Salvation, Logic of Destruction, as we're concluding the final pieces for the Beast Deity archetype. So without further ado, let's jump right into these cards and see how Nova Grappler is shaping up and which type of archetypes we can build after this set is hitting in the English format. So we'll start off, of course, with the triggers. We've got some vanilla reprints, and I'm only gonna give them 1 star as they're just reprints and we have seen them time and time again. Enough with them already. But we luckily also got some new triggers, as we've got this new crit as well as this new front. So this means we have 3 different fronts and 3 different crits for Nova Grappler. And I give them both 3 stars, as just like Kagero, Link, Joker, this opens up a lot more deck options that we can play around with the triggers. And for Nova Grappler, it's even more so because we have so much more trigger lineups that we can now experiment with. And this is gonna be very dramatically changes around the board for what type of player is gonna pilot the deck. So very awesome. However, what's not really that awesome is, for some reason, we've got this new hero archetype that's using some kind of Beyblades for attacking, and we already have a Beyblading starter, and that is a hero, but for some reason, they decided to make a new hero that's using a slingshot. So yeah, 1 star. If I could give it, I would give it 0 stars, as it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. We also got some new vanillas. However, they also gave us this vanilla, the Fighting Rose, but it's just still a grade 1 9k vanilla, which we already seen, and I believe that was Death Army Guy or Death Army Lady, and that wasn't a great card. This isn't a great card. 1 star. However, the new vanilla for Nova Grappler is this grade 2 3k. Yeah. It got 3k power and 5k shield. So what's so amazing about this card? It got 2 critical. Its natural crit is 2. This is the first of its kind, a crit 2 unit written right straight on the card. And it might not be really that great if you look at the first glance, but if we combine it with Axel 1, it can become a 13k attacker. And it has 2 crits. And your opponent might not want to let that one slide, as that's 2 damage. And Nova Grappler can restand that guy multiple times in a single turn. So you have a rearguard that swings for multiple times with a crit. Naturally. That can be really good. So I'm going to give it 3 stars, as it might have some good synergies with things that Nova Grappler can do. Now we also got the new grade 1 perfect guard. That's Cable Mechanic Spechanic. And it's got the similar skill on Auto and Vanguard. When placed, draw a card, discard a card. Again, 3 stars, as it allows some more playability and more deck building thanks to the new triggers in the mix. This might be something that's useful to look at. Now for the new skill cards, we've got this new grade 2, that's Vernal Cracker, and it skills Auto Rearguard Circle. When it attacks, this unit gets power plus 3k until the end of the battle for each of your other rearguards. This is somewhat an excellent unit. Yes, it's an 8k grade 2, but with the new Axel 2, we have a lot more units to call to the field. So we're probably having a lot more units onto the field that we're used to. And then this boy can swing for some high numbers. Probably plus 9, plus 12, plus 15 aren't really that far-fetched. And then we have a unit that can be restood through other skills that is already hitting for high numbers. So in that sense, I'm going to give it 3 stars, as it does synergize somewhat with the clan, what it wants to do. However, it is still reliant that you have a full field. The next, we got a new grade 3, and that's Savannah Wild. And its skills Auto Vanguard the Rearguard Circle. When placed, Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 2, and retire all of your opponent's rearguards in the same column as this unit. If the retired units are 1 or less, this unit gets power plus 15k until the end of turn. So for a Counter Blast and 2 Soul Blast, you either retire 2 rearguards in 1 column, or you retire 1 and give plus 15k to this unit. Yeah, that's not a great skill. Yes, it does synergize with the fact that it has unplaced Vanguard skill, so you can retire the booster behind your Vanguard, and this will attack for 27k on its own. But again, this isn't really synergizing what Nova Grappler actually wants to do, and you're wasting a lot of resources, so only 1 star. I cannot see how this might work for a good build. Then we have a grade 3 that actually synergizes what Nova Grappler wants to do, and that's Glad Grant, and its skills Auto and Vanguard Circle. When it attacks, if you have 2 or more rested rear guards, cost Counter Blast 1 and Soul Blast 1, and this unit gets power plus 10k until the end of turn. And if you have 5 or more rested rear guards, stand 2 of your front row rear guards. So for a Counter Blast and a Soul Blast, you're attacking for 22k and potentially restand 2 rear guards in the front row. If it's your first grade 3, you can restand 1 Axle unit and 1 strong attacker that's on a non-Axle rear guard. Or if it's your second right target, you can restand your both Axle units in the front row. That's a very powerful skill, as it does similar what Perfect Riser does, but also as your second right target, it's as powerful and a little bit more powerful than the Incest Riser. So it has some synergies with different archetypes, how they work, and it gets some value done. So I will give it 3 stars for that, as it is a very solid card. Then we've got a very insanely powerful grade 2 that is Kick Typhoon. And its skills are Auto and Vanguard the Rearguard Circle. When placed, if this unit is on your Vanguard Circle or an additional Rearguard Circle, one of your units gets power plus 5k until the end of turn. So it's a very good aggressive early game, as you can ride it and give a unit or himself plus 5k. Also late game, when you put it onto a Axle Circle, you can give another unit plus 5k. So you increase the power output on your field basically for free. That's already pretty damn good. But then we also have a second skill, and it's Auto Rearguard Circle. Once per turn, when it attacks, if all of your front row rearguard circles have a rearguard, cost Counter Blast 1 and stand one of your other rearguards. So we finally have a rearguard unit that consistently restands one of your other rearguards. So we aren't really reliable on our Vanguard anymore to restand some units. This is pretty damn insane, as it allows us to do different kind of strategies where we can attack first with the Vanguard, then stack some triggers, maybe a crit trigger onto a rearguard, and then restand it multiple times. This also synergizes with the new grade 2 vanilla that has a crit, so we can restand that bastard basically multiple times to hit our opponent with a multi-crit unit. So overall, pretty damn solid card. 5 stars definitely, and it also is an insane booster card for the premium decks, as it gives Nova Grappler Premium a very solid early game as well, with thanks to the plus 5k and the potential restand in the early game. Very good. Then we have another very potent grade 1, and that's Drill the Duel, as it skills on a Rearguard Circle. When it boosts, cost discard a card from your hand until the end of turn. When your opponent would call a card from hand to the Guardian Circle, for the battles of that unit that was boosted by this unit attacked, he or she must call 2 or more at the same time. Counts this battle. So what this card does is, when it boosts, you can use the skill to give the unit that it is boosting the Battle Dory effect, and it will last until the end of turn. So if you're gonna restand it with one of your Vanguard skills, if you're gonna restand it with Kick, for example, every time that unit will attack, it will swing with the Battle Dory effect. So that's very strong. And the only downside is that it needs to boost it itself, and unlike Aqua Force, we cannot then swap it to an Axle Circle. Sadly, we cannot do that. But overall, very strong. 4 stars, definitely, because the Battle Dory effect for something like Nova Grappler that's hitting with sometimes lower numbers can really do the trick. So pretty damn solid in my opinion. Then we're heading straight into the Beast Deity support, and we'll kick it off with this grade 1, that's Beast Deity Grantz Dragon, and it skills Auto Rearguard Circle once per turn. When your other unit attacks, if you have a grade 3 Vanguard with Beast Deity in its card name, cost Soul Blast 1 and stand this unit. So another unit that stands itself, that's not depending on your Vanguard skill. It is depending on the fact that you need the Beast Deity grade 3 Vanguard, so it's not an early game card, but it allows you to either restand an entire column if it's a booster, or if it's on an Axle Circle, restand a 13k or an 18k depending if it's an Axle 1 or an Axle 2. Overall, it's a very versatile unit, it's very solid, it allows for more multi-attacking, and that's something that BSDT really wants to do, so I'm going to give it 4 stars, as it's a very good, solid unit. Then we got a new grade 2 that's very similar to Black Tortoise, and that's Deity, Eclair Dragon, and its skills auto Vanguard Circle when placed during your main phase. If you have a grade 3 Vanguard with Deity in its card name, cost, counter +1, and discard a card from your hand. This unit gets power plus 3k until the end of turn, and attack your opponent's Vanguard with it. If that attacks does not hit, stand this unit. So it's similar to Black Tortoise in the fact that you can attack with it in the main phase, and then restand if it doesn't hit. However, instead that it costs a Soul Blast, it now costs a discard, but it does attain 3k power. But I'm personally not a fan of this card. I only give it 3 stars, and the reason why I'm gonna give it 3 stars is that it doesn't restand itself. You need to place it and then immediately use its skill. Black Tortoise, you can use it whenever you want in the main phase. It's an act ability. You can Soul Blast, Counter Blast, and it does restand itself. So you can synergize with something like Brutal Jack. This card doesn't do that. And it costs a discard. You don't want to discard an Nova Grappler, and only for the plus 3k. In most cases, that 3k power doesn't really attain to much, because it then becomes a 12k attacker or a 22k attacker. It doesn't really hit for that high of a magic number or go over some thresholds. In most senses, it doesn't. So, in my honest opinion, only 3 stars. And it probably won't be run in most Beast Deity decks. But a card that's definitely going to run in a lot of Beast Deity decks is the new grade 3 that is Ultra Beast Deity Illuminal Dragon. Basically the cross-ride version of Azure Dragon, the upgraded version. And the reason why it's an insanely good card is thanks to its 2 skill. First, auto Vanguard Circle once per turn. At the end of battle that your rearguard attacked and it does not hit, cost, counter +1, stand that unit, and it gains power plus 10k until the end of turn. Attack your opponent's Vanguard with that unit. So whenever a unit doesn't hit, you can then give it plus 10k power and it immediately attack your Vanguard once again. So a very good potent card in the late game when your opponent doesn't want to take certain damage anymore, and then you can swing again and it give it even an attack boost. So it also accounts for defense triggers, because the plus 10k circumvent that and go over that amount of power. But what makes this card even better, and is basically the reason why it's such a strong card, is thanks to its second skill, and it's auto on Vanguard and Rearguard Circle. Once per turn, when your other unit attacks hit, this unit gets power plus 15k until the end of turn. Basically, whenever a unit in Nova Grappler hits, you're gonna give your Vanguard, or this as a Rearguard, because you can put it on a Rearguard, plus 15k. This is pretty damn significant, because usually your opponent wants to take the first damage, hope for defensive trigger so they don't have to guard a lot of your other attacks. Now if they do that, they might empower your Vanguard or this Rearguard and turn it into a 27k on a normal Rearguard Circle, because you can then put something else on the Axial Circle. That's pretty big, because that is high enough power to even hit over defensive trigger in a Force Clan. That is what Nova Grappler actually needed, and this is gonna give your opponent a lot more things to think about, what they actually want to guard and what they don't want to guard. So definitely 5 stars, as this is pretty damn insane. If this was a BZD support, this will probably be the VR of the set. However, it isn't, it's all about heroes, so let's jump right into those new hero cards. First off, we have the grade 1, and that is Spin Kit. It is a very interesting grade 1, as its skill is auto and Vanguard Circle. When ridden from a grade 0, so your starter, cost, reveal a Spilling Valiant from your hand. That is the new grade 3 VR for heroes. And deal 1 damage to you and your opponent's Vanguard. You perform the damage check before your opponent. So basically, both go to 1 damage. This might sound bad, but actually this is pretty significant for the deck. You get a lot of value by having more damage, but at the same time, you're Nova Grappler, you want to put your opponent to high damage as fast as possible, and this does that without even attacking, because after you do that, and you win second, you then can attack with your Vanguard. And if your opponent got a defensive trigger, and then you can say, well, I'm not going to call anything else, or call Booster to hit over the defense trigger. But you can also that you did hit a trigger, and it could be a crit. You got a crit, so now your first Vanguard is an 18k attacker with a crit against your opponent. That's 8k. And they already have 1 damage. Yeah, that can be pretty insane. However, the downside is to the card, and the reason why I'm only going to give it 2 stars, is that it is only on your first ride target, And you need to have the VR in your hand. You need to have the grade 3 in your hand. If it didn't need the grade 3, then this would be a lot more realistic. So that's why I'm going to give it 2 stars, as the RNG aren't in the favor of this card. But a grade 1 that is actually pretty damn reliable and very strong is Smasher, and that's because of his 2 skills. His first one is Auto Vanguard Circle. When it attacks, costs counter plus 1, and this unit gets power plus 5k until the end of the battle for each card in your damage zone. And this is what I mean with the more damage, the stronger they are. But also, he's got the second skill, and it's Auto Vanguard Circle. At the end of the turn, if you have a grade 3 Hero Vanguard, put this unit into your soul and countercharge 1. So it allows you to refund that counter blast that you just used to have a very strong attack, and then go into the soul, so maybe use it for fuel for soul blessing units. So overall, in my opinion, a solid 4 card, as it allows you to do all these kind of shenanigans, be a good powerful attacker, but at the same time fuel your resources, because it goes in the soul and it fuels some resource for some soul bless units. But speaking of soul bless units, let's jump right into a grade 2 that actually uses soul for a very strong skill, and that is none other than Stylish Hustler. And that's because his first skill is Auto Vanguard Vanguard Circle. When your Auto Vanguard is retired by the ability of your opponent's card, cost Soul Blast 1 and return one of those cards into your hand. So whenever something gets retired by a skill or whatever, you can then fetch it back to hand. That is pretty big for something like Nova Grappler that cannot survive something like a retire clan. But it also synergizes with the VR that we're going to see in a second, as it's the only way that your opponent is going to deal with your unit. So this can really put a lock on the game. So it's a very potent skill. However, it doesn't end there, as it also got the skill Auto Vanguard Circle. When it attacks, this unit gets power plus 3k until the end of the battle for each of your damage. So it's similar to the grade 1, only it doesn't cost a counterblast. It's a little bit weaker, but it doesn't cost a counterblast. Yeah, 5 stars. This thing is insane. It also works in any type of build because it isn't restricted to hero archetype. It can even work in something like Risers, Beast Deity, whatever. It works. It's a strong attacker. That's something like Nova Grappler needs, and it can give some recursion on the field that Nova Grappler needs. This is an insane good card. But it isn't the only grade 2 that the hero engine got. They also got this one, Warrior of Chakram. And its skills on a Vanguard Circle: when your Vanguard is attacked, cost Soul Blast 1, and this unit gets shield plus 5k until the end of turn for each card in your damage zone. So instead of that it gets plus 5k for what we've seen with the grade 1, this one gets in shield value, and then you can intercept with it. So the longer the game progresses, the more powerful this unit becomes as an interceptor. So very decent. It isn't really game changing for that matter, but I give it 3 stars. It's just a solid card, and once again, it isn't restricted whatsoever, so you can even use it in some other builds, and that's pretty decent. But the hero engine did get another grade 3 support card, as well as another defensive card, and that's Girly Dolly, as her skills continues of Vanguard to Rearguard Circle. If you have 5 or more heroes on your Rearguard Circle, all of your guardians get shield plus 10k. And mind you, this skill does stack, so if you have 3 copies of this unit onto the field, all your shield will be plus 30k. So against a forest clan, you can probably guard a lot of attacks very easily. But it is a fact that it's on a grade 3, and you need to have a lot of units on the field. I'm going to give it 3 stars. It's a little bit slow, but if the game progresses long enough, this card will pay out a lot. And thanks to the grade 2 Stylish Hustler, you can just fetch this unit back if they're going to keep retiring it, because you can then basically fetch it back and then call it again to have a lot of defensive capability. So 3 stars, solid card. It allows for some good synergy. The only downside is it is restricted to heroes only. That's the only sad part about this card. But with all the new heroes that basically are doing a lot of work with the amount of damage that you get. They get stronger, get more accessibility, but they do have some survivability. But what's the main thing that they're working to? Well, that's what we're going to see right now with their VR, that is spinning Valiant. And it got 2 interesting skills, to say the least. Its first one is continuous on Vanguard Circle. All units can only attack the Vanguard. This is what I mean with spinning Valiant, that the only way that they're going to get rid of your units is by retiring them through skills. They cannot attack them. So it synergizes with the grade 2. This skill is really good with Stylish Hustler. However, the problem is this skill works too ways around. This also counts for your opponent. So you can no longer attack your opponent's rearguards. The upside to an Exo clan was the fact that they have multiple attacks, so when your opponent gets a defensive trigger, they then can just ram into the rearguards to at least get some value out of them. This card blocks that. It's a little bit wonky for that. It is fine that most of the hero cards get a lot of power, so even one defensive trigger can circumvent it, but it has some issues with it. You can no longer get rid of those units, so you are also account for 3 attacks your turn every turn. You have no control of that because you cannot retire anything. So yeah, it's a little bit stingy in that sense. But then we also got a second skill, and it's Auto Vanguard Circle. When it attacks, if your front row has 4 or more units, basically right as a first turn, fill your front row because you got an Excel marker. Until end of turn, this unit gets power plus 10k. Alright, a 22k attacker Vanguard. Pretty solid, especially thanks to its first skill that you cannot attack something else. You want to hit high enough so defensive triggers don't matter that much. But then cost Counterblast 4. And when your opponent would call from his or her hand to the Guardian Circle, he or she must call 3 or more at the same time. So we got a Battle Doorway skill on multiple steroids. Not only does you give it to your entire field, so all your units have this effect, it increased from 2 to 3. Yeah, that's pretty nuts. It's a very strong skill that can basically end games. But the problem is, it's a Counterblast 4, so it means that you have 1 shot, and in most cases, 1 shot only. You can do it a 2-shotter if you're using the grade 1, put them into the soul, countercharge 3, and then get 1 damage. Then you can use it again. But the problem in that is, that means that you cannot use the grade 1's Counterblast skill because you're gonna use all your Counterblasts for this unit. It saddens me to say that I'm only gonna give it 3 stars because yes, the card has some insane potential and the synergy is there. But the fact that it's all behind some restrictive skill where it does also help your opponent, and the fact that it's a Counterblast 4 makes it a little bit tricky and very one-dimensional, and that makes the card and the archetype a little bit less good. Thankfully, the support cards are very strong and it makes it a little bit more viable, but the VR is something less left to be desired. So that's why only 3 stars. But although the VR is a little bit of a letdown, the main support for Nova Grappler this set has been quite insane. Not only have we seen the insane finisher for the Deity support cards, because Illuminal Dragon is pretty damn insane, as well as the new grade 1. These are pretty damn good cards. We also seen some very interesting vanilla cards, as well as the introduction of Kick Typhoon. This card is gonna change things for the clan, not only in standard, but also in premium. And then to round it all off, we also got the new hero archetype with some very interesting and strong cards, like Stylish Hustler, for example. And yes, Spinning Valiant might be left to the desired, but overall, it's a solid finisher and it can do its work when you time it right and the combination is going your way. So overall, the Nova Grappler support is in the range of pretty decent to pretty damn good. It depends on what you're looking at. It falls in that spectrum because some cards are pretty damn insane. But that's basically everything from me in this video. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of this new support. What are you more excited about? Are these new generic stuff? The Deity now finally is finished and is gonna go ham in the meta? Or are you more interested in this new weird hero-esque type with some interesting skills like Stylish Hustler, like Spinning Valiant, like the Miracle Dolly? Let me know all your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, as this is a very diverse set and there are some very interesting cards introduced with the heroic evolution. But that's basically everything for me today. As always, I want to thank my Patreon supporters over at Patreon for making this video possible, and basically everything on the channel. If you do want to support the channel and all the content that you can find on the channel, then head over to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a patron today. But as always, guys, I'm Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one.